Good afternoon, beautiful people, and welcome to another powerful episode of CK Stories from the Heart, where real stories meet real transformation. I'm your host, Charles King, and today we're stepping into a conversation that promises to shift perspectives, stir the soul, and remind us of the power of reinvention. Our guest is a man whose life reads like a masterclass in resilience, authenticity, and purpose. He has spent more than 3 decades pouring into communities across the world, from North America to Africa, from Europe to the Caribbean, touching lives with his voice, his message, and his unwavering commitment to human growth. He is a transformational speaker, a motivational coach, a vocalist with a sound that can shake a room, and a former pastor who has walked through the fire of reinvention and emerged with a message that is both healing and liberating. A father of 6 sons, a lifelong musician, a global traveler, and now a guide for those seeking freedom from limiting beliefs, religious trauma, and the weight of who they were told to be. He stands today as a living reminder that healing is possible, growth is intentional, and a new way of living is always within reach. Family, help me to welcome the incomparable Kenneth Ringgold. Hello, sir.
How are you today, sir?
I am just excellent. Thanks for being with us today. Yes, sir. I can most definitely hear you. Before we get into the show, is there anything you'd like to say to the audience before we get going?
Yes, I just like to first thank you for inviting me on. I'm honored for the opportunity. And also, as those of you that are listening in, I always say to everyone, come with an open mind and open heart. And we're going to have some candid conversation. And hopefully we're going to learn something before we leave out of here today.
Yes, sir. That's definitely a good thing. I definitely appreciate that. So what I like to do first is to give people the opportunity to learn about who Ken it was before you became this outstanding speaker and motivational person that you are today. Can you tell us your journey spans ministry, music, travel, and transformation. When you look back, what moment feels like the true beginning of your story?
I got to
Okay, it just seemed like
the
you
signal was a little
you
garbled. I
got a
got a
little
little bit of
delay.
that. You said my journey.
Okay, let me.
Yes.
Your journey spans ministry, music, and transformation. When you look back, what moment feels like the true beginning of your story?
Woo! Well, I can't negate the fact my moment for my whole story began as a child, growing up in the church. So there was a pastor, my grandparents are pastor, and of course, I entered into the ministry as well. So my story begins in the church, and that's where I was. I still go to church, right? But the beginning of my story is going to begin in the church, and it's going to begin with that religious upbringing, different mindsets that I was taught, some that and productive, others. So mine's going to begin there, church and with family.
You spent more than 3 decades in public ministry. What did those years teach you about people, purpose, and yourself?
Ooh. It taught me about people, that people are going to be just that, people. I had to learn the hard way not to put expectation, and I learned it too late, to be honest. The people that you pour most into, most times they're the ones that are going to turn back and be the most they're going to give you the most indelible impressions of a negative sort, the ones that you really take time and you sacrifice for. What it taught me about purpose is that my purpose has not shifted. I'm very clear on purpose. My purpose has always been to pour into, has always been to empower people. And then what it taught me about myself is that I had and have to be a little bit more selective and discerning as to who I'm going to spend that type of time.
You know, and just thinking about your resilience, I mean, like those things that you had to learn in that whole process. What were some of those things that you took that's made you the great person that you are today, that made you motivational?
Because I didn't always have motivation. I'm always the type of person that tries to learn from my own error. I try to learn from the error of my predecessors. And I also try to learn what I lacked. Like, what did I lack in my own life? What was I hungry to get? What did I want from pastors? What did I want from parents? What did I want from family? And then I tried to transform that. In learning those lessons, I try to use that as a tool of empowerment for other people. Because what I began to understand, when I was younger, I kind of thought I was on a sailboat by myself, that I was the only one feeling the ways that I felt. Right. Until I really began to hear the stories of other people, Charles, and especially those of us in the church. We're born to believe that the church is all encompassing and that everything I need, is coming out of the church. And that is such a fallacy and it's such a falsehood. But that's what I thought. I thought that everything I needed, I could get from church. And now climbing up the ladder of age, I'm getting ready to be half a century, Charles. I spent time with my granddaughter this weekend. I'm like, oh my God, right? Right. I'm learning that depending where you are in a church, some things you can get, but not everything. So I had to come to that harsh reality after being a third generation church boy, and trying to get everything I needed from that experience, but then falling short in many ways. So I try my best to use my pitfalls, my disappointments, my failures, my own, insecurities that I had to try to pour into other people to let them know that you can do what you have to do. You can have the philosophy of making sure that you put yourself in a position where you honor yourself, right? And when you honor yourself, now you can love other people. When you love yourself, you can love others. Because I came from a background, I did not love myself, so I didn't know that. But coming up, you look back, I didn't have that self-love. I was focused on everything and everybody else. And that's what led to a lot of things in my own life that I had to grow from.
As a father of 6 sons, how has fatherhood shaped your identity and your mission?
Majorly. When you're responsible, when you're responsible for young men that you have to pour into and do everything that you can to give them, right? I began to find out as a father, Charles, and I'm going to say some things that some people may think shouldn't say that, but I can't help folks unless I'm honest. So when I came up, I didn't have I had a father. Yes, he was there. He raised us. He provided. He did all of the old school fatherly things, right? Because that is what he knew. Okay. And I do believe that every generation of fatherhood should improve and get greater. Okay. So I've told my sons as well, there are things that I was not good at when I was raising, especially my first three, right? But I told them this, I want you to be better than that. Okay. So I improved fatherhood in the way that I could from what I did not get. I didn't get an overabundance of affection from my father because he was a working man. Okay. I remember late night, him coming in the house, picking me up out of their bed and taking me into my bedroom, tussling, those type of things. But my father was not a communicator. He was not a talker. All right. And not of men in his generation, not a lot of men were. Right. So I became, I think, probably according to my sons, maybe a little over communicative because I wanted to make sure they heard me on a daily basis say, I love you. I was a hard father. Yes, I was. But I wanted to make sure that they knew that I loved them, that I valued them. I made sure that I gave them talks, things of that nature, right? And that was one of the things that I learned being a father that kind of transformed me and still in being communicative because I was not always communicative either. I was one that held a lot in. I tried to show what I did through action versus being wordy, right? And in some cases, doesn't work because our sons need to hear from their fathers when they're proud, when we're proud of you. We love you, not just when you fail or not just when you need to be disciplined, right? We need to hear those things. So it really transformed me in being able to say certain things. The statement, I love you, from a father to a son carries so much weight. I'm not talking about on birthdays. I'm not talking about, no, on a daily basis. I love you.
Yeah.
Just those three words, it brings everything I think into perspective for a son. So that's kind of how fatherhood really transformed me. I had to learn how to talk to my sons and not to be an overly disciplinarian because I failed at that at first. And I had to learn, sit down and talk to your sons. Find out why they're doing this going on with them so that I can be a better father for them.
The one thing I got to say is that as I listen to you say that, I am so happy, and I know that it had to be something that had to be real, is to connect with you via social media because as I listen to you speak, not just here on the show, but as I've watched some of the things that you're speaking about, just how authentic and how real that is, but the communication, as you mentioned, is something that cuts like a knife because it's real. What made you decide about the part about communication that you had to be that guy to make sure that people understand and can listen to some things that can help them?
People want to be heard, right? And learning from my sons. Now, the first three, they kind of tell the last three, man, y'all got it easy. when we were small, it wasn't no talking. You did certain things, pop came down, right? And in some instances, I'm glad I came down. But in other instances, I had to go back to my sons, Charles, and say, I'm sorry. I apologize, right? I was wrong when I did that. And I wasn't afraid to say I'm sorry and I apologize because I meant it, right? If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I can't play the father card because I'm your dad. I'm never wrong. None of that, right? So as I moved through that journey and able to say, I'm sorry, which I never got that as a child from my parents. And I'm sure they didn't get it from their parents because that's not the way that we were raised, right? Parents are right, children are wrong. Be heard, be seen, not heard. that type of thing. And that was part of our culture. And I think a part of a lot of families' culture, to be honest, right? So I've always communicated. Now, I've won speeches for public speaking in school and different business organizations and things of that nature. But when it came to speaking about emotions, Charles, you weren't getting that from me, because I didn't trust anybody with my emotions. Okay? I didn't, nobody. When I say nobody, nobody. Okay. My nana, I trusted with my emotions, which coincidentally today is the anniversary of her heavenly transition. You know, my nana, anybody who knows me knows about my nana. If you talk to me 2 minutes, you're going to hear something about my nana. Now I could tell my nana stuff, right? And she would kind of guide me. All right, now you can sit, you know, what have you. But I didn't. So my kids kind of taught me sensitivity more than I had. And so I go back to the statement, people want to be heard. So when I have the opportunity to hear people, and I have some of the experience that I have, you know, I'm not here to gloat about success, because I teach a lot from my failures, right? So that other people don't do what I did in certain areas and hinder their growth and their opportunity to then go motivate someone else. So I've always been a motivator. I get joy out of that. Like, I was a kid in elementary school, you know, in the choir, pushing somebody to lead the song. Come on, you can do it. I can't reach that note. You're gonna reach it. Come on, let's do it. I've always had that type of personality about myself to motivate other people, because I felt like I didn't have a whole lot of motivation. I just had a lot of expectations. And see, when you put expectations up and there's no motivation to get there, it's just expectations, do it, or there's a consequence, you're not going to get the same, fruit. If you're going to put an expectation up for someone, parallel that with motivation and help them to get to where they're going.
So you've traveled across continents. What cultural experiences impacted you the most?
Probably Africa.
Oh, wow.
I think going to Kenya and Uganda impacted me the most for a couple of different reasons. The first reason, I think, is the concept of togetherness and the concept of gratefulness, right? Because where I went, they have very little, but they are the most grateful and they are the most appreciative when you are with them. Okay. Those experiences impacted me on a level of family as well, because of course I was going to minister and to preach. You know, we did orphan meetings and, you know, the whole nine yards. But there were also some dangers also of being there, because at the time the Islam was doing a lot of persecutions that came there. So kids, you know, gone. You know, I had to prepare the possibility. They had to put me in. I had to be gone by nightfall. What would happen? So that taught me a level of sacrifice. It taught me a level of gratefulness. And it taught me a level of not being so spoiled in my own head because of my American experience. Loved it. I think out of all of the places that I've been, Kenya and Uganda were the most eye-opening for me when it came to those aspects.
So what was the hardest chapter of your life to walk through, and what helped you keep it going?
Wow. Can I give you two?
Yes, sir.
The hardest chapters of my life, I'm going back to childhood, okay? Because I can't even, I really can't say just one thing. My childhood was a train wreck as it relates to my school experience, as it relates to entering into ministry very early. I started ministry at 12 years old. And some of the things that I was taught as a child, as it relates to my school experience, I know now was, I'm going to label it as sincere malarkey. Okay? Sincere malarkey. I don't think that anything I was taught in my childhood was anything of a malicious nature or purposely driven to be negative, but it ended up being negative. All right. And so the first thing was my childhood. I was bullied every day of my life. You know, I was a church boy, you know, going to school, you know, I'm preaching in school. I'm you know, it fostered a lot of low self-esteem for me. Right. I was depressed every day of my life when it came to my childhood, anywhere from third grade right on up to high school. Every day of my life was a challenge to live. I had suicidal tendencies. It was a mess. And I only was able to survive music. It was music. It was the relationship with my auntie that I had that kept me moving through those, you know, through those years without calling it quits in life. So that was the first chapter. What that taught me was you got to be tough in order to get through certain things. That taught me toughness, right? And so some people that have known me down through the years, they're like, "What's wrong with you?" Nothing. I'm getting ready to turn 50. There are certain things I'm not playing with. All right. And there are certain things that I'm not allowing to happen in my life. Period. Point blank. It doesn't matter what you think about it. I have to be on a certain trajectory because you don't know that part of me. All they saw about me was dancing, preaching, you know, singing in church. That's all they knew. They didn't know me at home crying all night. They didn't know me at home trying to figure out how to commit suicide, right? They didn't know any of that, right? And for the few people that I confided that in, the only answer was pray. Pray. I'm the prayingest young man you ever going to meet in your whole life. What do you mean pray? I pray all day, all night. I'm probably the only teenager you would know in all night shut-ins, prayer meeting. You couldn't pray no more than I did, but it didn't fix it. It didn't fix it. I had to learn how to be tough, and I had to learn how to deal with people as they are, not as I thought they were. Oh, wow. So that was the first thing. The second was going through a divorce, making a decision to shut down my ministry when it was still moving. Okay. Now, some folks have to shut down their church. I didn't have to shut mine down. I did it voluntarily. Okay. Because I began to see that all of these years that I have put in, not perfect at all, but sincere toward people and sincere as I mentored people. I have products of ministry literally all over this world, right? When I went through what I went through, the silence was deafening, Charles. Deafening. From the same people that I walked through sickness, the same people that I walked through divorces, the same people that I walked through being homeless, The same people I walk through from getting ready to get kicked out, I'm giving them my money, and then I'm having to figure out how I'm gonna pay my bills. All of these things, right? And the response from the majority of the people that I fellowship with was silence.
Oh, wow.
And I went through a very, very dark and dismal place, but it taught me I got to keep my eyes off of what people do. And I've got to, my grandmother had a saying, love me, show me, show me. And I had to see the people that did love me, which were very few, that stuck with me, right? When I was in a place, what they deemed to be low. When I was on my high and I'm traveling and I'm doing all this stuff, oh, he's so great. When I go through, they forget that I walked them through where they went through. So I learned about people, and I learned about the church culture. Not that I didn't know, because I did, but certain things I did not really speak to unless there was a certain situation that I had to deal with. I wasn't on Facebook. I wasn't on Instagram like that. I wasn't even into social media or anything like that at those points. So that taught me you got to look to yourself, and you have to have a relationship with God, just God, right? And the church piece, you cannot replace God with church. You cannot replace God with religion. It's a whole different track. And you have to know that, but you don't know that until you go through that. Okay. So those are the two darkest places of my life that I would say that brought me to moving and just changing my whole flow and my whole mode of operation, so that I can not only survive, but that I could actually thrive and help other people through.
All right. So I want to thank each and every individual for watching, those that's been watching up to this point. Now we're about to hit some points that I'm sure that Ken is going to say some things that's going to be able to help each and every individual. So I suggest that you guys listen. I want to thank each and every individual that's been watching up to this point and watching this show, because this show, I promise you, is going to be powerful and impactful. So as we move into this next part, because this is the thing that caught my attention from watching you, your work as a transformational speaker. And you're known for challenging limiting beliefs. What are the most common mental barriers you see people struggling with today, and why is that?
The most common limiting barriers that I see is self-awareness, which a lot of people are limited in their minds because we only live our lives based on the expectations placed on us. I find that a large majority of people, if you ask them, why are you here? Why are you alive? Why are you living? Most folks will never be able to give you a clear, concise answer, okay? Because they have allowed their experience with family, religion. Those two areas are the areas that people suffer with the most, because family puts an expectation on us, and I don't care what religion it is, Buddhism, Catholicism, Christendom, whatever it is, there are always some types of expectations placed upon us that are not realistic. And so instead of me going inward to find out, why am I here? What drives my actions, right? What drives me to do what I do? What drives me not to do what I do? We don't take time to sit in silence and learn those things. We're going through the rat race of life based on false burdens, is what I call them, that are placed on us. And now we're living a life of stress, trying to please mama, daddy, reverend, pastor, mother, reverend, bishop. And the whole time, it had nothing to do with who God made you to be. And by the time we find it out, almost too late. So I know I talk a lot, but it's the mind. It's the mind. And what do I believe about myself?
Mm-hmm.
And most folks have no clue.
The one thing that I connected with you again, I have to go back, and I'm sorry, but when you was talking in that one speech, I heard you talking about why people are leaving the church, and when we talk about this mental part of this, can you tell us how does that play? How do those two things sync?
I'm going to tell you why it sinks, because here's the deal. Most organized religion, unfortunately, and I'm going to talk about Christendom. I've never been a Buddhist. I've never been a Catholic. I've never been it. Okay. Most of those organizations are centered around somebody else. Okay. Most organized religions do not empower people. Okay. They don't push people. They don't acknowledge the talents of people, whether it be business, whether it be music, whether it be, a food business, whatever business ideas someone has in the organized religion. A lot of leaders in our religious sectors are selfish, Charles, and it becomes all about me, 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 and we're not empowering or encouraging the people, right? Let alone centering around Christ, as I'm a Christian, so of course I'm going to, let alone centering around Christ. It's about make me look good, make me feel good, and the people attending are dying in the seats about perception. And because we have a opinion of ourselves, okay, right? Yes. But what's your purpose? We got what the pastor's purpose is, I guess. Right? We got that. What are you supposed to be doing? And again, it goes back to we're supposed to get everything from the church. You know how many folks are in church right now that was supposed to start a business 30 years ago, but they can't? And you want to know why they can't? Well, I won't say can't. They won't, because the people prospering means that you've got to take perhaps some time off of going to church, because you got to go to college maybe. Yeah. You know how many people back when I was coming up didn't go to college because the pastors want you in church? No, you can't leave your church. Go to the community college down the street. I seen it with my own eyes. You know how many people lost opportunities of I'm one of them way back in my youth, of doing certain things musically and all of this because everything was a sin. Yeah. And we still adopt those mindsets. And then years later, when I'm 70 and 80, now I'm trying to fulfill something that I was really supposed to do when I was 25. Because of false expectations and false burdens. And that's why I believe that a lot of people now are migrating away from the church. Because some have realized, wait a minute, I've been doing this for 50 years and I'm not any further along than I was 50 years ago. Something's wrong with that picture, Charles, and it has to be amended. And these things people don't like to talk about because now, excuse me, you become a pariah among the religious. Don't say that. Don't say that. Don't say that.
Yep.
Jesus said it.
Yep.
He was a pariah among the religious.
Mhm.
You know, so I tell people now, I'm in good company, bro. I'm in good company. I done it. I didn't. There's nothing anybody can tell me about church, religion, all that. Can't nobody tell me nothing about it. I lived it. The good, the bad, the ugly, and the indifferent. You can't get over on me, right?
Mhm.
When you get to a place where you say to yourself, I've got to do this for me,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
That's when the snakes and the venom come out. Because one thing about church folks, let me tell you about church folks, Charles. As long as you're giving them what they want,
Mhm.
you're in there. The minute you do something for yourself,
Mhm.
yeah.
Wow.
Because you are not feeding their egos, you're not feeding their desires, and you're not using your spiritual gifts and talents to do something that's pushing them in their foolishness.
Yes. 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 So, how do you approach helping someone who feels stuck, lost, or disconnected from their purpose?
You first got to identify passion. So, this is what I teach people. What are you passionate about? When you wake up in the morning, you're going through your day. What are you thinking about in your head that you want to do? A lot of people think it's a mystery to try to figure out purpose and it takes a billion years. It really doesn't. Go back to the day, right? What were you excited about? When you did it, what brought you joy in your heart and in your mind? And when you can think about those things, a lot of times your purpose is attached in that vein. Okay. For some folks, it was music. For some folks, it's drawing, it's art, it's paintwork, right? For other folks, it's motivating, right? What gives you drive? What can you do if somebody called you at 3 o'clock in the morning and they told you to do this and you would pop up out of your seat ready to go? That is going to be a part, that's going to be aligned to who you are, right? I didn't have to rehearse for this. I love doing this. I don't have a script. I can do it. If you call me midnight, Charles, I can motivate. If you call me 2 a.m., I can sing. Love it. That's who I am, right? So have I done things to accentuate that? Of course. Have I had mentors to pour into me in certain areas? Of course. But that raw talent, that raw desire is there. So you have to see what brings you joy and build on that.
So, what does authentic living mean to you, and why is it so important?
Authentic living. Authentic living means this to me. Living in a way where I can look myself in the mirror before I go to bed and go to bed in peace with no tossing and turning, right? How I've conducted myself in that day. Have I fulfilled the purpose in that day? Have I helped someone in that area? For me, it's motivation, music, movement. Fitness is a big part of my life. You know, I coach folks in their fitness journeys. Love it. It's part of what I do daily. So authentic living for me is moving in that musical space, moving in that motivational space, moving in that fitness space, and making sure that the things that I do is leaving a lasting legacy. When my kids put me in the ground, I've lived authentically without having to think about the opinions of other people, right? Because I've been there, right? I'm in the place of my life, Charles, now where people's opinion of me, guess what? I can care less. And people say that, but I can really care less because at this point in my life, I've done that. I've lived my life for other people, right? I haven't done things because other people didn't want. Nah, because when you live your life that way, you also will live a life of regret. When you don't do what you're authentically blessed and gifted to do, you will eventually look back and say, I could have, would have, should have. And by that time, hopefully, we can have a little strength left in our life to change it. But in many cases, it becomes too late. So for me, authentic living is doing what I need to do for myself, for my seed. That is who I am, right? Without someone giving me backpedaling and then me saying, okay, never mind. Nah, full speed ahead. It's full speed ahead.
So you speak often about healing. What does healing actually look like in real life?
Healing in real life means this. Healing does not mean that there are no scars. Healing doesn't mean that there is not a I don't even want to call it a residue, but maybe a residue, right? We remember the wound. But healing means that I can press forward without the regret of what once was. I can move forward with the experiences that we have had that have brought hurt. But now I can build upon that hurt, right? Healing has everything to do with building again. Healing has everything to do with restoration. Healing has everything to do with smiling again and enjoying the quality of our lives again, right? Those that could not smile can smile now. Those that could not laugh can laugh now. And those who could not grieve before can grieve now, right? There are certain things in the last 6 years of my life, there are certain things I never processed. Never processed. I skipped right through them. And in the last 6 years, I've been able to sit through them. Some things I had to cry over. Some things, be honest, I cussed over. Something, whatever. I had to grab that moment and move through it, right? And just the ability to cry is a healing process for some. And when you're finished that, you begin to see, surely like the scripture says, all things really do work together for my good, right? Because I do love him. I'm called according to his purpose. So it didn't feel good when I went through it, but now I can look back and I can say, in some areas I'm healed, and in other areas I'm still healing. Some areas I still got the Band-Aid on, but I'm not where I was. So that healing process means that I can communicate about it. I can help others through it, and I can share with them without those feelings.
Well, and as you think about that, and I love that process. But what is it that you actually do, and what should people take from that wonderful answer, though, as to how they can also do some self-improvements and making themselves better? Because a lot of times people, it takes a while before they get that inspiration and that motivation, but something has to happen in between that they have to do. What are some of those things?
One, you've got to acknowledge that you've been hurt. When you talk about healing, you have to acknowledge the hurt. Acknowledge it. Sit down somewhere, live through that memory, right? Live through that. Feel the emotions attached to it, right? And especially for men, because we've been taught not to feel. Feel through that. The second thing after you acknowledge that is validate how you feel. That it's okay to feel hurt. It's okay to say, I went through this these emotions. I went through this experience, and now I'm hurt. Acknowledge it. Validate that it's okay for me to acknowledge this, and then going through a plan of restoration, right? What do I need to do as an individual based on who I am to get over that? Does that mean that I have to isolate myself for a little bit and surround myself with some healers, some folks around me that will continually to pour into me as I'm going through that process? Healing the whole process of healing does not happen alone. It may begin in an isolated place, but there is always somebody that pours into us, right? It may be a stranger, it may not be the one we want to do it, but somebody to remind you, you're going to get through this, bro. You're going to get through this, sis, right? So surrounding myself with folks who have gone through that, right? Acknowledge, validate, and then go through the plan of restoration with someone who has enough wisdom to bring you through that until you get there. And I'm going to tell you something else we don't do. We don't get counseling.
Oop. You're right about that.
Yeah. So that is something that is positive as well.
So what message do you believe the world needs to that the world needs most right now? What message is that?
Love. Love. And again, I say love, because we don't know where people are. Okay. We don't know that person that's skinning and grinning all the time, or that person that is angry and bitter. Love. My nana used to say, you got to love the devil out of them. Right? Love. Because that extra criticism that we call tough love is silently killing people. The message that I would say that the world needs to hear everywhere they go is love. And love, and I'm not talking about conditional love. I'm talking about the type of love that says you deserve it because you're a human. Period. And if we can love one another, then we can get through anything that we need to pass through if there's real love being shared.
You know, when I just think about that, and you know, when you said love, I agree with that 500%. Because as I look at what's happening today and what's happening from a societal standpoint and just with people in general, I'm seeing something totally opposite. And I say that because, yeah, I'm older than you are, but I'm just going to tell you, it's like sometimes when I look at, you know, just from the daily basis of just interacting and just wanting to chat and get to know and talk with people about many different things, I'm noticing that we're living in what I call the bizarro world. Everything is just the opposite. And so, like, where everything from when I grew up, yeah, it was tough love, but it was positivity and it was love, right? And so, taught on those morals, those values, and those principles are the things that I know to treat people the way I want to be treated. But also, you don't just go around just be mistreating folk and just creating all kind of havoc. Today, that's what the world is doing. There's a lot of havoc and mistreatment that's happening, and it's what people are considering to be the norm. How do we get away from that? Because I really don't understand that.
Well, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to quote a scripture.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible said in the last days that the love of many would wax cold. All right, because iniquity would abound. So, as you say, the norm now, even here's the thing, even saying good morning, how are you? People give you a side eye.
Yep. Yes. Yes.
You know, you hold a door open for somebody. You know, they're looking at you crazy, or they go in while they're sucking their teeth as if they were entitled to do these things. But here's what I'm saying. It has to be done one person at a time, right? And I think we have to do more teaching and showing and talking about what love is. Because unfortunately, in this time, even the definition of love has become very distorted.
Right.
So, you know, what we say, you know, what these youngins and some of the older folks too say is love is not true love. It's not. And this is why there's been such a breakdown in family estrangements. This is why there's been such a breakdown again in the church culture, because the idea of love now has become very objective and abstract. And that's where the breakdown. So the only thing that one of the things that I think that we can do is just show it one person at a time. And and pray that they pay that forward, and it'll become like that little snowball that began like this. But if you keep rolling it down the hill, it gets larger and larger and larger, because if we don't do something about it, it's really a travesty at this point, the way that things are happening.
Let's talk a little bit about your work as a motivational coach. You work with people on fitness and personal transformation journeys. What's the biggest mindset shift required for real change?
The biggest mindset, for real change, it becomes a place of discipline and intentionality, because we will never change unless we are intentional about changing.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got to say, I'm using an example. Okay, I want to change my diet. I want to change my fitness, my fitness journey. I've got to be intentional about it and say, I'm going to do A, B, and C.
Right.
And I have to have the discipline to go along with that intentionality until that discipline grows into desire. So intentionality, I think, is one of the greatest things, even beyond motivation. We have to be intentional, because every day, to be honest, I love the gym, but every day I'm not motivated to go.
Right.
Now, once I get in there, I'm good. But I have to be intentional. When I wake up in the morning, I'm going to the gym. That's just what it is. But I built that habit over intentionality and then discipline. So I'm slashing that with intentionality, discipline. And I think that once we become intentional, we have a good path forward.
So how do you help people rebuild confidence after years of self-doubt or negative self-talk?
I like to give people things written, right? I'm very big on writing things down, and I'm very big on affirmations, right? As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. We have to retrain our mind. That's what I had to do. You know, I grew up being insulted, called all kind of names, all kind of stuff, right? I had to rewire my own mind, and I had to do it myself. Okay. I had to rewire my mind. I had to look at myself in the mirror, and I had to speak the opposite of what I thought about myself. Because here's the thing. If you listen to folks long enough, I don't care whether it's a lie or a messy truth. If you listen to it long enough, it's going to become a part of your own behavior and your own belief system. So we have to be very intentional again of rewiring how we feel and think about ourselves by using this pink rag in our mouth called our tongue, and look at ourselves and say, I am blessed. I am positive. I am successful. You know, I am a world changer. Whatever it is that we're doing, we're speaking that in the present tense and never in the future, because my mind has to take on a new identity, right? So shifting the mind begins with what I say to myself. And then when I begin to say that to myself, what the good Lord above does is he sends folks into our lives that are in alignment with what I've been speaking to myself all along. And now they begin to confirm that. And now I have a circle of people who believe in me because of what I believe in myself. Now my behaviors begin to change. Now who I hang out with begins to change. Where I go, everything begins to change, but it all began with me speaking to myself about who I need to be and who I am.
So what role does discipline play in transformation, and how do you help people develop that?
You got to coach them and hold them accountable. The thing with coaching is we have to have an accountability partner, right? So when it comes to fitness, when it comes to changing our lives, you know, communication with the right person, right? I've got to communicate with folks. You know, I'm texting folks. What did you eat today? Send me a picture. I need to know. Oh, well, I had a good breakfast. I send me a picture. I need to see what you're eating, bro. You telling me I need to see that accountability. When people know that I'm going to check in on them,
Right.
when they know that I'm going to give them a call, hey, how's your day going? Oh, I'm doing good. It don't sound like you're doing good. Talk to me. It gives people that outlet to be heard and to share their experience, get it off of them. And now I can bring them into that place of accountability and discipline, right? So discipline knows Ken's going to make sure your workout is at 3:00. It's 2:55. I don't see you walking in the gym. So I'm sending you eye emojis. Where you at? That breeds accountability and discipline because they know they have a partner that they're responsible to.
So what's one practical strategy someone can start using today to change their life?
One, decide if you really want it. Do you want change? If the answer is yes, get a pen and paper and write down. This is what I tell people. Write down 3 to 5 things that you want to change in your life. Put them on a piece of paper. I want to change this. I want to change that. I want to change that. It'll start with I want, right? Depending on how that goes and what memories come up, boom, boom, boom. The next thing is identify the obstacles to what you want. What obstacles are coming against the desired changes that you want to see in your life? And get with someone, if you can't do it on your own, like a coach or a motivator, someone who's been down that road before, and say, let's partner together and figure out what plan we can make to overcome these obstacles. I want to do the business. I want to get my life right in my finances. I want to get my fitness life together. These are the things that over the last 1 to 3 years have kept me from doing that. And get a plan of accountability together that every single day, this is what I'm going to do. And once you have those obstacles set, once you get your plan set, here's the next thing. Put it on your calendar. When I wake up in the morning, I'm doing this one step. I'm going to look and to see what the business license is. I'm going boom, 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 organize it. And then that accountability partner that you have, y'all sit and talk about it, what had happened, and then celebrate every win that you made. And that's going to bring some discipline. It's going to bring some motivation.
I'm assuming that this is your son. Put this on the screen. Your dad.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's Izzy. What's up? Yeah, that's Joshua. Well, we call him Izzy.
Okay.
What's going on, boy?
So let me just say this as we move into the next part here. For those of you that's with us, the TikTok family, at the top of the hour, I'm not sure if the show is going to end, but if it does, please pick up the show on the YouTube channel, CK Stories from the Heart. Again, if you are a part of the TikTok family, if it cuts off at the top of the hour, please go over to CK Stories from the Heart on the YouTube channel and continue to watch the show. Now, the last thing that I want to talk with you about is one of the big things that you just started here. This is with the gathering of Black men in the community. Can you just, you've spoken to the gathering of Black men. What does that space mean to you?
Wow, it means a lot. It means a lot because I am a firm believer, and I want to go on record because, you know, I've been accused of certain things. I want to go on record. I'm not bashing women. I love women. My aunt is over here. This is my auntie, my Nana's baby girl. But here's the thing. We are supposed to be in places to lead, to inspire, and to move forward. And men don't normally have a safe place to talk about the emotions that we carry. Okay? We have emotions. I made a post earlier that men are people too, right? And because of how many of us were raised, we're not given the privilege to say, I'm sad, I'm depressed, I'm having a challenge. Because at that point now, we are being classified as weak. We are being classified as whatever other names we want to make. Man up. You know, the saying is nobody cares unless we're rich or we're dead. Okay. And unfortunately, among many groups, that is 100,000% true. Okay. So it is important. Yeah, yeah. It's important to me that Black men understand. I'm hearing a feedback. Is that me? Did I do something?
That's you.
Okay. It's important to me that Black men understand that when it comes to society, when it comes to family responsibilities, all of these things, that there is a safe space where we can come together and we can be ministered to. We can let our hair down and say, these are the struggles that I'm dealing with, without being ostracized and without being criticized for those things and for those words and those mindsets. So it means everything to me because it helps to heal. And if we can heal, then our sons and daughters are going to heal, right? Our grandchildren are going to heal. Our neighborhoods are going to heal. Our churches will heal. Our communities will heal. So I really believe that a lot of healing, Charles, it begins with us. It really does. Yes. Because unfortunately, it takes a man to know what a man goes through, right?
Yep.
Others can observe it, right? Yes. But to walk through it, it takes you as a Black man with experience, right, to speak to us as younger Black men, right?
Yep.
That's everything. It's everything.
Yep. As you did that live last week, because I watched that and it was very powerful. And what I wanted to say, I'm going to say this on air, is that I give you all the support in the world that you need, because there's so many spaces, that are taking place around the country, around here in America, where Black men are trying to establish just what you're doing right now. And so I think the more of something like this that happens, it more than allows the healing. It allows Black men in particular to get all that lift off the shoulders. Because yes. I think what a lot of people do not understand, it doesn't matter about if you're in a Black culture or not, but just being a Black man, there's so much stress and pressure that's put on you to do so many things, but nobody ever wants to acknowledge you. And so this is what disallows, to me, in my opinion, this is what disallows you not being able to have the ability to express how you're feeling. And so I think what you're doing, I think many people need to jump on board with this. Many Black men need to jump on board, because we do need that space, that safe space that allows Black men to actually just come to that inner peace.
Yes.
And so what made you want to actually do something like this?
I've been thinking about this, Charles. When I say I've been thinking about this a long time. It all goes back to, okay, you go to church. You see a lot of women. Okay. Now, there's a whole lot of reasons for this that we don't have time to talk about now, right? But hear me out.
Right.
A lot of women, not a whole lot of men, right? And different spaces, when you talk about healing, women are going to talk about it with themselves. Okay.
Yep.
And as I said on live, Facebook Live, and I will repeat, and they're going to talk about us. Okay. Yep. Now, here's what happens with men. Men can be struggling in their marriages. Excuse me. Men can be struggling business, in their sexuality, all of these different areas. And you can be close with one another. But guess what we're going to do? How you doing, Ken? I'm good, bro. I'm good. Let's go get something to eat. We're not talking.
Right.
And so now I think, you know what I mean? But that's the way we are. And then, and I remember, you know, having conversations with my aunties and, you know, my ex and different ones. How they doing? I'm like, yeah, they're good. You know, well, what happened? I don't know. What you mean you don't know? Well, we didn't talk about it. You know, we just hung out. You know, we just went to eat. Y'all didn't talk about. See, men, we have gotten our strength just by being around one another, right? And it's that energy of I'm with my bro. I may not talk about everything, or I just may say, man, things going crazy over here at the house, or things are going crazy on my job or whatever. But we don't really talk about details and specifics because it gets too emotional. Right. Now I think that Black men are understanding and realizing there has to be a place where we take these things out of our heart. And it does not make me any less of a man to tell you, bro, I'm drowning. I am hurting, right? And I think now it's becoming a little bit more accepted than it used to be. And when I looked at that, I said to myself, I've given over 30 years, Charles, of preaching and moving around in the church sector, blah, 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 blah. I was in Durham, North Carolina, and I can tell you exactly the moment where I was sitting down to the table. And I had an experience, some of which I can't even go into now because it'll bring me into another whole different space emotionally. But I had an experience where the only thing I can tell you, Charles, is that I could feel the weight of the wounded men. Yeah. I could feel it, and I can cry right now of the number of men who love God, who love their families, but they have been so damaged and wounded that they feel like there's no return and there is no safe place for them. And I told a good friend of mine at that time, he looked at me, he said to me, what's going on over there? I said, bro, I'm having an experience right now. I said, I feel a different type of purpose for me now. I said, I've got to speak to the wounded. I've got to speak to the wounded. And I'm not having anything against speaking to wounded women, not at all. But the majority of who I'm going to speak to are men, because we need to know, one, that God sees our pain, another brother sees your pain, and that there is a process to get you out of that space. So that's kind of what was a catalyst for me, just looking around and saying, we don't have anywhere we can go, you know. And then when that happened to me, I felt like I have a mandate from on high to speak to these things to men, to let them know there's healing available. And if those that want it, we got to get it. We got to go get it.
So what are the most urgent conversations Black men need to be having with each other?
One of the most urgent conversations that Black men need to be having is, one, a conversation of love and acceptance. Okay? Because here's the deal, Charles. If you don't walk like me, if you don't talk like me, if you don't live like me, now I don't want you around me. Right? Nah. It has to go beyond how you were brought up. It has to go beyond what your religious affiliation is. All of that needs to go, because at the end of the day, speaking as far as Black men are concerned, when it comes to racism and when it comes to all that stuff, whether you are a Pentecostal black man, a Catholic black man, a straight black man, a gay black man, or whatever black man, when it comes to racism, they don't care about none of that other stuff. They see you as a black man. I have 6 sons. Okay. You know, they don't care what shade. I got light-skinned black sons, I got brown skin. They don't care about none of that. They see a black man, right?
Yep.
And when racism is executed against us, all that other stuff don't matter. And I'm gonna tell you something else. Racists that don't even like each other will unite when it comes to fighting against black men. Okay. So my question is, why do we allow certain things to divide us as a race of people if we're supposed to love ourselves?
Yes.
So that's the number one. That's one of the conversations that need to be had. Why do you not? Why do I treat you differently because you got green hair? Why do I look at you ring and I'm a little bit more conservative in how I dress? Why don't I like you this and I'm over here speaking in tongues? What? And you can tell, like, I get frustrated about that because none of that matters when it comes to us as a nation of people. None of that matters. We are black men in a nation that has spent its inception working against us. And we keep doing this. Unity is the second thing. We got to unite, period. Across levels, because I make $1 million and you make $2. Now I look down on you because you make $2 a month. I make $1 million. I'm better than you. Nah, let's come together and see how we can help. You know, and 3, coming out of hypocrisy, because we can be hypocritical now. Because we can do this talking and we can go on these forums. Right? Came away from some of these pastors because they're hypocritical when they start talking about let's get together. And I reached out to some of them. Yes, I did. Let's get together, then let's have a forum. I ain't heard from them. Some of them I know. I hope y'all watching. Some of them I know. They ain't get back. You know why? Because I'm not the traditional preacher that they once knew now. Right? I'm in a different space affecting different people. They're only used to their little church gatherings. I'm beyond that, bruh. I'm not mad with the church. But I tell you what, if you're going to be effective in this time, you got to come out those walls, bishop, apostle, prophet. You got to come out of the walls. You got to get out here where people are really having a hard time and people are trying to change, because the majority of the folks inside these walls, they're not trying to change. They're trying to camouflage.
They're not going to. They're not going to. You know, there's one commonality that I'm listening to as you speak on these many things here. The commonality is religion. And what I want, if you could please tell us, because, you know, like, it sounds like from what we started about the mental perspective to just the everyday living to being also authentic in oneself, is that religion is taking away from a lot of black men that's causing them to be limited. What is it about the church and religion that's doing that to so many black men?
Pandora's box, Charles. Pandora's box. First of all, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say this, and I have to preface this. My grandmother was a pastor. She's a woman. She was a woman. I am not against women in ministry. Some of the most powerful influences that I've had in ministry were women. I'm not against it. So I'm laying that type of foundation. Whatever your biblical belief is, that's everybody's thing. My belief is I don't have anything against it. But here's the next thing. We have too many people, both men and women, in religious sectors that are emasculating the men from their places of authority. Right? And when I talk to men about why some of them are not going to church, it's not that they don't want to go, but when they go, they don't see themselves represented in leadership. So how can I, as a man, grow and there are no available male mentors? Right? Even if it's not the pastor. But you mean to tell me, as a man, if I have an issue about my manhood or about my life as a man, that I'm going to be counseled by a woman who's never...
She's never been a man.
Come on. So that's the one thing. You can't understand how it is to be a man no more than I can understand how it is to be a woman, right? Now, I can give you what I heard from my grandmother, give you what I heard from my mama. I can tell you what my auntie says, but I can't give you any real life experience because I'm not a woman, right? So that's the one thing. Men need to be able to mentor men, period. Okay. And where there's a lack of that, there is going to be, let's just say, some catastrophic events happening because of that lack. All right. And then when that happens, just like some are being, man haters or women haters and all that type of thing, some of that is, for me, is a little bit extreme. But there are definite advantages to men being in religious settings where we can pour into, and I don't even use the word religious, ecumenical settings where we can pour into our younger brothers coming up. So religion plays, because when you look in the church, it's a lot of females are in the driver's seat. And like I said, I'm not against it, but you got to have some male counterparts somewhere to help these young men that are coming. Because if not, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? So, yeah, that's
yeah. But you know what? We'll have to bring that back for another show, because that's really in depth. But that's also some insight, is that's spotting a light that I think most people should actually take a look and see what's before your eyes. And you know what they say? Believe what your eyes see. Because some people today will tell you, don't believe what your eyes see, because that's not what you're seeing. Now, if you're crazy enough to believe a Jedi mind trick like that, when you knowing what you're seeing, that's a problem. That's just a problem. How do we build stronger, healthier communities spiritually, emotionally, and socially?
Spiritually, emotionally, and socially. Spiritually, I think that we need to separate. I'm trying to be careful how I word this. We need to be able to understand that the church does not always equal God. Okay? And we need to understand that there is a change. Now, there's a change happening, right? There's a change happening in the world. There's a change happening in our communities, and there's a change happening in our churches. But when change begins to happen, Charles, the first instant, because we don't like it. Okay. Here is the deal. There are a lot of communities now, and I'm seeing it, where people are driving more in the spiritual sense in gatherings and homes now. Prayer meetings in the home, Bible studies in the home, because the church setting, I went to a church, I didn't hear anything about Jesus for 30 minutes, sitting in the church, just visiting the city on my way to work. Nothing about Christ, nothing about God, nothing about nothing. I don't know what they were talking about, Charles. I got up and I left. I gave them 30 minutes. I got out of Dodge. Okay. This is happening in a lot of places over the world. And if they do mention God, it's hatred being preached over the pulpits. Okay. If we're going to make a change spiritually, we've got to, if we say we love God, we've got to point people to God now. Okay. Not point people to Ken, not point people to, you got to be in church. No, point people to God and trust that whatever God wants for that person, that God is big and independent enough to lead that individual to where they need to be. Okay. So we've got to control out of spiritual things that men and women have in our hands. We have to stop trying to control that. All right. And lead folks to God by showing what? Love. It's all going to go back to love when it comes to spirituality, because until I know you love me, I don't want to hear anything you have to say about God, really, because some people's experiences God have not been positive. So when you first come, I ain't got a Bible next to me. It just came from church. I don't know what I did with it, but when you go and you start with the Bible, but when you go to them with love, now they can hear you, because we begin to show them the love of God rather than yapping about it. And then we do the opposite. So that's the first thing for spirituality. We got to point people to God and stop trying to fill up our churches. And then when they get in there, we beat them up. Got to cut that out. You know, we've got to let folks know that it is okay to, one, we forsake, I'm going to say it again, counseling. Churches now, we've got to begin to, it's nothing wrong to get counseling for the abuse that you had in your marriage, the abuse you had in your childhood, all of that type of thing. There's nothing wrong with having someone to talk over those emotions with. Okay. There's nothing wrong with having advice from a professional who studied these things, right? And having folks around us that are available, that are emotionally intelligent, Charles, and that are emotionally available and astute to what we are going through, where we can speak to these things and then receive from these things, right? And then what was the third one? Spiritual, emotional, and was it our communities, building stronger communities? Socially, Charles, I'm going to tell you, we got a lot of socially awkward people now because of distrust among our communities. We're giving everybody the side eye because we've been hurt, right? We've been hurt. I was giving folks a side eye, and some folks I'm still giving a side eye. I ain't gonna lie to you. But here's the thing. We've got to open up our minds to interact with people that we may not know, but observe. If we're going to expand on a social level, I've got to spend time in circles that I'm not used to going to, and I've got to observe, right? We're not going into things with our eyes shut. Observe how people move. Observe how people speak when they don't know you're watching them, because we do have to say, right? We do have to protect our heart when we are being intentional about improving our social parameters. And as a people, we've got to begin to know that everybody's not the devil and everybody's not out to get us. We have to make certain connections, but this time with a little bit more wisdom. And when people show us who they are, believe them the first time, right? And not give people the knife to keep stabbing us over and over and over again. So I think that the whole thing in an enchilada, we got to take risks, period. We take risk every day we leave our house. We're taking a risk. Take a risk, because doing it alone is never going to be the answer, because that's going to drive us into depression and other crazy stuff happens. So taking a risk to do something differently to getting different results, right? Go to that business meeting. Go to that gathering where there's an empowerment session that's talking about lofty ideas, right? Not the house party across the street. Okay, because we didn't tried that, right? No. Go to places that are going to cause us to reach up to another frame of mind, and that's going to challenge our way of thinking. And if we go to those type of gatherings, and if we surround ourselves with those type of people, then our people experiences will change. The problem with us, we don't like change. We just go from one thing to the next, but it's a linear experience. It's not evolutionary. And that's where we have to shift.
So, what does accountability look like within community?
Accountability within a community says, I'll take that. I'll take that hit, Charles, right? I'll take it, because love does not come without accountability. It can't be, because if you see me galloping toward a cliff and you don't say, can't stop, or you don't yank me by the back of my shirt if you're close enough, right? Because you're afraid of what my reaction might be, I'm going to say, Charles don't love me very much. Proverbs says this: faithful are the wounds of a friend. So when you have a real friend and somebody that is accountable for your success and vice versa, we're able to tell one another, bro, you were out of pocket for that. You should have never done that. Why? Nah. We have to do that with one another. All right. Accountability, calling each other on our wrong, congratulating one another on our successes. And I think that mix of the thing, right? We speak about the punishment, but about the rewards as well. And when that's mixed, then we can trust each other, because you also tell me when I'm right. But then I know Charles is going to call me on my BS when I'm wrong too. Ego has to come down. The ego has to come down.
How can men heal from generational trauma while still leading their families and communities?
Yeesh. Look at you, Charles. You got some questions on here. I love it. Healing while leading, right? I've had to do this a lot of times. Like, let me tell you this. It's hard. It's hard. I found it hard. I'll say that. I find it hard. Maybe somebody else found it very easily. The first thing you have to do, and it is a simultaneous thing, as you said, because I first have to keep remembering not to lead from a place of hurt, right? Because, and I've done that. I've done it. Leading from a place of hurt and not really wanting to connect with the people that you lead, whether it's family. I remember very distinctly, and I'm talking about my sons now, and I remember just crying, Charles, crying, because I said to myself, I want to be able to give my sons all of who I am, but some parts of me are messed up. And I don't want them to inherit my mess ups. And so I remember just crying out to God, like, Lord, you got to do something. And you just get this feeling of failure, right? You get this feeling as a father of, what am I going to do? But here is the saving grace. Speaking from a family point, is when I found myself in that place where I defined as failing them, I could come back and say, I'm sorry, I've identified something, y'all. I should have never done that. I got to correct that. I got to bring y'all back to the table and correct this. My 23-year-old said something to me. We were driving, and out of the blue, and he really touched me. He said, Pop, one thing I can say about you. I said, well, you will apologize to your kids. You will come back and reteach it. And that meant everything to me, because when we know better, then we do better, right? So I had to take that pride. We men have a pride problem, right? I had to take that pride down and say that. Same thing when I pastored. I had to get up in front of my church more than twice, 3 times to say I was wrong, y'all. I messed up. I had to go to people I led and apologize for things that I did. And I rebuked them for this, but they didn't, all this other stuff. I had to come back and say, I'm sorry. I apologize. And I think that helps to break something down in our own mind. And that in itself breaks the curse, because I'm doing something that wasn't done toward me or toward us, right? I'm sure we've all been in sections where pastors should have came and said, I'm sorry. I've never heard any of my pastors say I apologize, period. And I know they were wrong in doing certain things. Never said I'm sorry, right? I had to learn from that and be the one to break that going forward. So now I'm sure my kids have started having kids now. I know they've heard me say I'm sorry. Their kids may have to hear them say I apologize as well. So it's an ongoing process.
Final question. What legacy do you hope your work leaves behind?
A legacy of love. A legacy of love. I want people to know that no matter where you were in life, if you came across Ken, you got love from him, and that you got truth from him, and you got a push from him. Love, truth, and push. Because those 3 things I feel like are going to make anybody better for meeting me. Anything else, material stuff, all that stuff doesn't matter. I want them to know I love them. I want them to know I told them the truth. And I want them to know that I tried to push them to their next level with no expectations of anything in return.
So in closing, are there any words of wisdom and encouragement you'd like to leave with our audience? Tell them how to connect with you via your social media, your website, or anything that you'd like for them to know about what you're building going forward.
Yes. I want you to please, those of you on Facebook, my name is Ken, Ken, Ringgold, Ringgold. I am on Instagram at I am Lion77. IAMLION 77. I'm on TikTok very newly. I can't remember my TikTok ID right now, but if you've seen me on Facebook, you'll see some of my videos on TikTok. Follow me there. What I want to say to you is I am in the process of building a community. I am in the process of, and email me, Kenneth.Ringgold, the number 2, the letter N, the letter D at gmail.com. And let me know that you want to be a part of this community of men for motivational purposes, coaching purposes. I'm in the fitness arena. I do online coaching. Hit me up if you want to get to that fitness level that you're trying to get to. Diet plans, workout plans, the whole 9 yards. And I want to encourage you, okay, as we close, to know that you can become who you need to be happy in yourself. Do not allow external ideas, external mindsets, external beliefs, however deep rooted, to keep you from a place of joy within yourself. All right? No guilt. as it relates to your past. Begin to build today, here on out. All right. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. I'm looking forward to working with you. And I want to say to Charles, I thank you for this opportunity of trusting me on your podcast. I know you're not asking just anybody to come up on here. So I want to say thank you for that. And to all of you who have tuned in, thank you for spending this time with us. And I pray and hope that you are the better for it. I am available to speak to your group. I'm available to come in and share wisdom, podcasts, whatever, because I believe that this is a message that I have in my heart that needs to be shared and that folks will be inspired and motivated by it.
I want to thank you for that. As I close, before I close the show, can you stick around for a few minutes after I close?
Yes.
So I want to thank each and every individual that's been here, that's watching the show today. Our normal supporters, I appreciate you so much. And for those of you that are just newly to this podcast, please continue to follow, continue to subscribe, and continue to take heed to the messages that these guests are leaving. Our guest next week is going to be Miss Trish Lacey. She's got a story that, that's led to a great book that has been published, but also she's got a story for those of you that have ever been involved in any domestic disputes that I think you guys would really want to hear. So in closing, Kenneth, thank you for pouring into us today in honesty, wisdom, and a spirit that reminds us that transformation is not only possible, it's waiting for us to choose it. Your journey is a testament to resilience, reinvention, and the courage to live freely. To everyone watching, remember this: your story is still unfolding, healing is possible, growth is intentional, and no matter where you've been, a new way of living is always within reach. This has been CK Stories from the Heart. I'm your host, Charles King. Until next time, keep living, keep loving, and keep telling your story. We will see you